First of all, I wish to say how pleased I am to be in this company of like-minded people. It is a pleasure and a privilege to be here amongst you. Secondly, the briefest of introduction. Yes, I come from Malta, a tiny island in the Mediterranean, a tiny rock, a vast, a truly vast island, vast in the sense of spirituality, high culture, and history. Now, for those who would like to pursue the matter and read about us, we have an active site called vivamalta.org, vivamalta.org, and you can read all about us. Our movement is a young movement, barely, not even 2 years, but since then we've contested the European elections, and in the words of a leading journalist in Malta, we obtained surprising results. Since those elections, of course, we were denigrated, vilified, ignored, laughed at, whatever. The usual story, I mean, you've all passed through it here. But since those elections, we're no longer a joke in Malta, you see, because due to the size of our island, we can actually make it. The Prime Minister of Malta lately, on television, on a Sunday conference, actually admitted we can't have this 5% threshold, you know, the voting threshold. We can't, because otherwise we'll have Norman Lowell in Parliament. So this is how serious it has got, you see, because with a 5% threshold, Imperium Europa will obtain 3 parliamentary seats in the Maltese Parliament. And not only that, since the other parties, the squalid socialists and the Christian hypocrites, are always neck to neck, our movement will have the power to tilt the balance either way. So it's serious business. But that is Malta. I didn't want to come here to talk to you about that, but rather about our ideas and ideals. We believe, in Malta, having studied the right-wing movement, Britain, I corresponded for years with Sir Oswald Mosley, who was mentioned here, for years, with stacks of his letters. But one can see the divisiveness of the right wing everywhere. This is wherever there is a right-wing movement, you're bound to see division and splinter groups and all that. This is endemic in the right. Why? Because we are not the collectivist sheep of the left, and so it is endemic. It's part of us. So I have to watch that. Now, having seen that, we have to surpass our, let me call it that, don't get offended, our petty nationalisms, the narrow little furrow which we are digging in, each one of us, Malta, Italy, wherever, France, and sublimate our nationalism into a supranationalism, as Oswald Mosley used to say. But he only reached a point where he said, Europe, a nation, Europe, a nation. Now we have gone beyond that. We call our Europe an Imperium Europa, an imperial Europe, for a very simple reason. Because a nation, by its very nature, is feminine, caring, fussing, preserving, husbanding. That's a nation. It is the feminine side to politics. Socialism is feminine. Democracy is feminine. Imperium is intrinsically male. And we as a white race, being 5% of the world's population, this biological aristocracy cannot afford the luxury of a political stance which is intrinsically female. Now then, whatever we do here in Britain, in Malta, wherever, Spain, I'm in contact with practically every right-wing movement, the battle will not be won. For a simple reason, because our enemies, you know who we are, the international manipulators, they think globally, while we are thinking nationally. So, in order to win, and win big and decisively, we have to go to the ultimate prize, which is Europe. We have to take over Brussels. It seems an impossibility, but it can be done. Permit me to explain. In the EU, the right wing, obviously, is splintered. We have the absurd, tragic situation of the Lega Lombarda, the league, the Lombard League, right-wingers, believing in a united Europe. They're all for Europe, a Europe of regions and peoples, they call it, Lega Lombarda, completely attuned with us, with my movement. Forming a group with Peter Bonda, the extreme left, the Portuguese ex-communists, revolution, Peter Bonda, that's a terrible person. You can't go to his left anymore, to his left. If you read his articles, they're terrible. The Lega Lombarda are with him, rather than forming an alliance with the National Front of Le Pen. This is the absurdity. So the Lega Lombarda is with Peter Bonda and the Swedish socialists. An absurd situation, a mismatch. All the other right-wing parties have no voice in Europe. Alessandra Mussolini, National Front, the French National Front, the ex-Mazzini, they have no voice. Millions of voters. Millions of votes squandered with no voice, because in the EU, to have a voice, to have a group, a recognized group, one must have 18 members from 5 countries. That's the catch. 18 members from 5 countries. And it can easily be done by the right wing. Easily be done. Now, our idea is to win seats in the Maltese Parliament, but use them as a springboard to Europe. Without Brussels, none of us can make a difference. None of us. It's impossible against the enemy we are facing. So we are fighting the local fight as a springboard to Europe. Why? Because once we get there, we want to galvanize the right wing there. We want to unify the right wing. And if we do, if we get Alleanza Nazionale, other right-wing members of Forza Italia, the French National Front, and all the rest of it, we'd have 65 members straight away in Europe. And with a little bit of lobbying, federalists and so on, we'd get over 100 members of parliament in Europe. Now, 100 members of parliament of a united right front would tilt the balance. Just as we, in mold of Imperium Europa, can tilt the balance either way with 3 deputies, we want to do that thing in a bigger scale, on a broader basis, in Brussels, with 100 members. Of course, we will retain our divisions. We will agree to disagree. Nationalism, regionalism, federalism, an imperial vision. By all means, but let us shape the system first. And now is the time, because Europe is still a baby. A baby, sometimes stupid, sometimes naughty, but growing up. And growing up into a very strong body. The thing is, who's going to control the brains of that giant, that emerging giant? We have to be the right, otherwise it will be filled up with somebody else. So we have to take over Europe, and it can be done. It can be done. Because nobody is expecting it. But you'll say, yes, this is all right. We can do it. We can try to do it.